Wild time.
But people are very passionate about their conspiracy theories these days, is all I'm saying.
Well, dude, Forrest's entire first show that he did on TV was, in a way, could have been a conspiracy theory thing, right? There was a lot of people. I mean, your whole thing was like, the people that deem animals extinct are not doing thorough research. It's a ridiculous, silly process.
For sure.
And I think a lot of extinct animals are actually still extant. And that sort of could easily be labeled as like, oh, he's a wacko.
Oh, for sure.
That's a TV show. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That's a tinfoil hat for sure. You know, in the scientific community, it's like, oh, okay, buddy. You know, it reminds me, I've said this before. If you've ever seen The Lost City of Z or read the book, Percy Fitzpatrick, he's the great British explorer who went disappeared in the Amazon with his son and his son's friend on his 4th expedition down there. But the very first time he stood up in front of this room of basically investors, it was all these like stuffy dudes in smoking jackets in this room. And he's like, I'm going to go find this lost city of Z. And they're like, you're crazy. You're a lunatic. You know, and they all start like screaming at him like he's just such a fucking hack job for even suggesting this. And it's that's totally what it was like when I first started talking to colleagues about potentially looking for animals that were extinct. And what's so funny is because of the show that, you know, Patrick, you created and you and I worked on, you know, and I hosted and everything else. Like now it's an entire field. You know, there's the Search for the Lost Species campaign with Global Wildlife Conservation, and every at least 3 times a year in the news, there's something popping up about someone launching an expedition or finding this believed to be extinct thing. Hell, we talked about the Valetsky's chameleon like 2 shows ago. You know, there's like an entire field now of the sciences generated around the work that we started with looking for these animals that were wrongfully deemed extinct. And in the beginning, it was all just a crazy like tinfoil hat idea, which is pretty wild.
Right.
Dude,
Totally.
that is wild.
Well, I mean, the best, I mean, a lot of places we went, we would talk to locals and stuff, and they would be like, yeah, I think it could still be around, whatever.
Right.
But when we got to the Galapagos, man, they were just, when we went to the Turtle Conservancy and we were talking to the guy who was Lonesome George's keeper and, you know, real serious conservationists. And we told them we were going to Fernandina to look for the tortoise. They thought we were fucking
They laughed at us.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, they literally
laughed at like we were stupid ass bitches who were just making a TV show.
Do you remember,
dude? 2 days in,
do you remember we met with crazy. Was he like the governor or the chairman or something? He was like a pretty high up, and he was a relatively young guy. And we met with him out on that like jetty dock thing. I can't remember.
He was the president or whatever, the highest person in the Galapagos.
Yeah, exactly. And he was so smug. And like, you know, he had so much of that like Spanish machismo-y thing going on where he's like, ha ha ha, you will never find that, ha ha ha. And it was just like,
is that Spanish or French?
I don't fucking know,
I'm not
dude.
sure.
But he was just like, he had this whole like persona, and he was like so arrogant and like so much machismo. And we're like, okay, I remember I walked out of the scene and I went to Patrick. I was like, we're not using that. And Patrick was like, no. And he just shook his head like, no. Because the guy was just so like over the top ridiculous and so like insultingly negative about our chances. And then 2 days later, 3 days later, 4 days later, whatever it was, when we showed back up with Fern, Mr. President was nowhere to be seen. And then a week later, he's being quoted in like some article in the Galapagos paper, which is like, I always knew they could do it. And it's like, dude, I'm like, we should have put you on our show, brother. Like, fuck you, man.
Oh, man.
I will say about that guy, though, when they tell you like the president of the Galapagos or the fucking king or I don't know what he was, but when they tell you he's going to show up, you don't expect like this handsome guy who's your age, who has a shirt buttoned down to here and smells amazing. Like, man, did that guy smell good? And he's super engaging. And handsome as a motherfucker. He was so handsome.
Too. Yeah, it was a bit outrageous. It was a bit outrageous. I was like, is this
like a young Ricky Martin with more chest hair?
Is this the stand-in for the actual president of the Galapagos?
Yeah, he might have been.
Apparently he had a French accent too.
Twirling his mustache.
Dude,
Wild times.
So if you want more behind-the-scenes stuff that we cannot show on YouTube, Darwin Awards, video breakdowns and reviews, check out the Patreon. It's full of hours and hours of incredible exclusive content, stuff that you guys are going to love. Swipe up, click the link, do the thing, come and hang out on Patreon. See you guys there.